Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. There's a story up now about Marshawn Lattimore and how good he feels. So I talked about this on the podcast yesterday and what he had told us. But I have a story up on ESPN.com about it. And again, as I told you, you want to get minicamp updates, always go to ESPN.com. You get updates on the Commanders and every other team that has a minicamp going on. So, and I will have more stories throughout the summer. I have one on the run defense coming up, why they feel it's going to be better and why it has to be better. Of course, it has to be better. It was the number one thing to correct this offseason, that and finding a way to get more takeaways. Not about the pass rush from the edge guy. It's about takeaways, stopping the run, improving those areas. They're going to be really in much better shape. Anyways, so check that out on ESPN.com. And I will be doing several podcasts a week for the next couple weeks. And then in July, I'll be kind of throttling down to a couple, trying to take a little bit of a break. We'll see. But then obviously ramping up. The timetable for training camp is going to be around July 22nd, 23rd, in that range. So here you go. The rookies will report several days before that. So anyway, folks, that's the timetable. Don't have anything official yet, but that's, it's around there, right? It's about what they were at last year. So, all right. So let's get to day 3 of minicamp. And by the way, Bram told me this today that apparently my 1000th episode will be on Monday. So as of right now, I'm planning to have Greg Cosell on for that. So tune in for that. Not going to be any cakes or fireworks, but it is the 1000th episode, and I thank you guys for making that possible. So anyway, there you go. Let's get to day 3 of minicamp. Oh, by the way, next week I will have something kind of wrapping up the spring and just some standouts, etc. And I will have more guests on next week as well. So there you go. Day 3 of minicamp. Let's wrap it up. Uh, Everybody's going to say they had a good off season, so for now we'll kind of avoid that. I do want to point out a mistake I made yesterday. Actually, I feel really bad about this because I just got the numbers wrong, and this is the problem with it's still early. Listen, man, it's mini camp for me too. So I kept saying I was pointing out some plays on Wednesday that where Jalen Lane didn't do as good a job, where he got jammed at the line, etc. It wasn't Jalen Lane. I saw 84 and I kept thinking Jalen Lane's 84. He's not 84, he's 83. So 84 is Michael Strachan. So that's he had the drop. He had a tougher time getting off the line of scrimmage, not Jalen Lane. My apologies to Jalen Lane, the Jalen Lane fan club, etc. And so anyways, there you go. So apologize for that, and we'll move on. Couple things. Update on Noah Brown. What we know as of this recording is he's getting an MRI on Thursday to determine the extent of the injury, of whatever injury he has. And Dan Quinn did not say what it was exactly, but he limped off the field. So it's not related to his kidney or anything like that. There appeared to be close to a collision with Will Harris, but I don't think it was that either. I don't, because initially you wondered, did he get bumped a little bit? I don't think that was it either. It may have, but anyways, I'm not going to speculate on what I think it is, but it would be a leg injury. He did limp off the field. So, and as far as like, would you know if it was like really bad right now? Probably. There have been times in the past, like typically if it's a really bad injury, you know fairly early in the process, right? However, there have been times where you leave a situation you think player X is in good shape, and then you find out a day or two later after more tests that they are not. Jonathan Allen last year, he had the torn pec. I remember talking to him after the Ravens game. He was like, I'm fine. But that's also why, but he knew, first of all, it was torn, but also he knew, I think at that point, it wasn't torn as badly, which is why he was able to come back. So that's why I think he felt okay, but it was still torn. Darius Geis back in the day, if you remember, he tore his ACL in the preseason game. Well, when he's getting on the plane, the initial thought was an MCL, and then you get more tests, turns out it's an ACL. So my point is, you don't know just because there's nothing, that has yet come out in a negative way. You don't know what it is, and hopefully for him, it's really good because it'd be a shame for him if he had to go through anything that was bad. But we don't have more of an update than that, so I apologize. When we get it, we'll get it to you for sure. But again, initially you say like, okay, good that it has nothing bad has come out, but you still don't know for sure what that means. So, anyways, that's the update there. Sam Cosmi has been working, and I've talked about this before, but he's been working on the side when they're out there, and I've seen him do agility work. You see him do some light jogging. I think they feel really good about where he's at in his recovery. And they keep saying like he's hitting the benchmarks, he's hitting the benchmarks. And I think so there's definite optimism about the pace of the recovery. What that means for the season, I think it's still a little bit early to say because there's still more markers along the way. But it's looking good for Cosme, right? Like everything so far has been looking good. When you watch him do some agility work, he looks good. When today all we saw him do was some jogging. It's maybe half speed, um, but they say he looks good. The things when you tear an ACL, it's a lot of times it's the movement, right, side to side. But I think being a lineman helps him in this situation where you don't have to do maybe as much as what a skill guy does. On the other hand, you've got to rely on those knees and those legs to get yourself some power. But so far, so good for Sam Cosmi. I don't want to put a timetable because they haven't put a timetable on it, but I don't think it's going to, if there's like a 9 to 12 month recovery, certainly it's not going to go to the 12, right? So I think, anyway, looks good. So optimism, see where it goes. So because without Noah Brown, you had no Noah Brown, you had no Terry McLaurin, and Jalen Lane did not practice. Michael Gallup had a hamstring issue, so a few receivers were missing for sure. They did close the practice. There was about a 40-minute practice, and it was final day. Sometimes coaches eliminate that final day. That's happened before. These guys did not have as many OTA practices. So, and I know last year, even Dan Quinn, because it was the first year, wanted to keep it, but because they didn't have as many OTA practices, they stuck with the 3 days. See if they do that in the future. But it was an abbreviated workout, but what is also a chance to have two really good days of work, followed by the third day of this kind of work, but also then bringing the families in for a picnic, which is what they did afterwards. So um, this is something they used to routinely do under Jack Kent Cook. They did it sometimes under Dan Snyder. And I think the last time I remember maybe was when Mike Shanahan was here. I think they did it then. I don't remember. I know it had been a few years. I will say this, I think with this group, it's just going to be a much different atmosphere from top to bottom. And that's, because today Josh Harris was out there, Mitch Rayos, Mark Ime, the two of the, his pals, but also two minority owners. And then Bob Myers was there at practice as well. So everybody's there. Mark Klaus, the team president, they all showed up for this. I think they're creating God, my goodness, like the atmosphere is so different than it ever used to be. From, again, players and coaches before could have something good, but from top to bottom, it's just so much better in terms of how everybody mingles and just how they're treated. And it's funny because I do remember back in the day when I first started, when Cook was here, there were times where, I mean, the food was really good. But I know with Cook, Bobby Mitchell told this story one time. So if for those of you who don't remember Bobby Mitchell, obviously a Hall of Fame running back, then receiver, great punt returner, longtime staff assistant GM in Washington, great guy. Anyways, he would say that Jack Kent Cook was notorious for, I mean, he would watch his money. And he would, even for these picnics, he'd say he would look at what Mitchell gave him the proposal or how much it was going to cost. And he'd see something. He said, well, these hot dogs, you can get these hot dogs for 5 cents cheaper per package over here. And so he'd have to go do that to save 5 cents per package of hot dogs. So, anyways, that's how much of a stickler it was. But it goes back to the barbecue and it goes back to creating a family atmosphere. And that's what they are absolutely doing here. It's like little things like that. Little things like Laramie Tunsil has talked about this others have talked about it too, when they came here to sign their extension, sign a contract to join the team. They would invite their families to be here. They would throw a big celebration in the lobby when they came in. It's not just about, being better, being rid of a guy. It's creating something even deeper than that. And I think they really get it. And I think it really goes a long way with these players, for sure. And, I think that's a good thing, right? And they did this last year, so it's not the first time they did it. But again, under Snyder, even when they did it, still you're still talking about a different atmosphere altogether. It's not just about the picnic, it's about everything in general. It's about taking people have asked me at the locker room, like the locker room, the players have not been dressing in the locker rooms. They have a locker room, their locker room is in the practice bubble because the locker room's being renovated and they're finding ways to create a better building for the staff, for the coaches, for the players. It's if you've ever been out there, it's not the world's biggest building, but they are finding ways to create more space for people, maybe getting rid of some stuff, space some rooms they didn't need before, weren't using as much, and just opening things up in the locker room. So the locker room is going to be bigger and have more space. But they've been changed, but it's little things like that. Like the ownership has listened to what the players want as far as how the building needs to go. But players dressing in the locker room, and my understanding is like it's not something they complain about. Like if you've been out here, you see the practice bubble, there's an extension from the bubble coming out. That's where their showers and all that are. And yet guys that are rolling with it because of the atmosphere they're created, and it goes back to that kind of a picnic. So there you go. Also, before I forget, I'm going to talk about a couple things I saw today in practice. One of the things I saw yesterday that I forgot to discuss, and I realized that as soon as I was done, and have some B-roll here of Frankie Louvu working with Ryan Kerrigan. This is one of the things I like about in the spring is watching these kind of moments when guys, and you see some of this stuff during practice, right? It's not like you don't see it during training camp and sometimes during practice because there are down moments for guys. If you're not involved in special teams work, well, you can go do something on the side. I've watched, Terry McLaurin do it. I watched Zach Ertz do it. And I was watching Frankie Louvu yesterday working with Ryan Kerrigan and just Kerrigan talking to him a lot about pass rush moves. And then also one in particular, just basically taking a left tackle up the field and then turning and spinning back inside around him and where to, the footwork needed to get upfield, the hand placement to come around the blocker, and then also where to put your hand on, when you're coming around, right? Just whether to knock to get your hand up to knock on the ball or whatever it is. But it's just that kind of detail, and I think it's really, have a Kerrigan working with a Luvu is a really good thing. Ryan is not the most vocal guy, but you get him in those one-on-one settings, he can help you a lot with your game. And that's what, like with Luvu, he can continue to develop as a pass rusher. And I think he still is because he hasn't always had to do that in his career, whereas that's where he made his money. So just that's one of those things I wanted to point out from yesterday that I forgot. And hopefully if you saw it on YouTube, you would have seen the video of them working together. I did put it up on my Instagram story yesterday, so there you go. I also like I said, I like watching Zach Ertz too. And they were doing a drill today, running a route in the red zone, in the end zone, and it's one where you really, uh, as David Rice this tight ends coach would tell the players like you've really got to sell the corner on this play. So when they're coming out, they're coming down there, you're going to turn and you're going to turn like you're going to run outside, but you got to sell the corner because you're going to cut back inside and just sit. And watching Zach Ertz do it, like you don't know where he's going to go based on his head movement. You don't know, but he's just very fluid and intentional about his moves, and it just more balanced than the other tight ends, and it looked different with him compared to the others. Now it is something they ran in the red zone during practice, but you work on it obviously, then you go implement it during the 7-on-7 stuff. But it's just watching him versus the others. Not some of them weren't quite as balanced. Maybe they don't sell the corner quite as much. With him, it's like everything, there's a detail footwork with his work, but it's why again, I always say when you want to know why someone's lasted as long as they have, you watch guys like that and how they work and talk to them about how they work. And there's no doubt about why they are still doing what they do. And the same with the Bobby Wagner. I talked about that yesterday and just how how much he works on his game and just stays on top of things. Because if you don't, then you're not here playing and going to the Hall of Fame. Um, but anyway, so that was a spirited 7-on-7 stuff. And I say spirited because linebackers coach Ken Norton Jr. makes it that way. He is a loud voice out there. He is definitely, he's every bit the former linebacker. Um, but yesterday he was getting on Jaden Daniels for taking too long on a throw. Today, before they get going, he's yelling to Cliff Kingsbury, "Hey, Cliff, you're not going to score today." Um, then first day, first said that a couple of times. He was saying to the offense, "You're not scoring. You're not scoring." First play, a perfect pass from Daniels to receiver Chris Moore in the right seam, and he turns and the ball is right there, and he didn't hold on to it. It was a perfect throw. But then the next play, floats a little ball over to the right side to Deebo Samuel, touchdown. Next play, really tough throw over the middle, back to Moore, tough throw, tough catch, another touchdown. Then on the next one, Daniels extends the play. And I've always told you, like, he does a really good job. All the quarterbacks do about getting rid of the ball. Well, on this one, again, doesn't do it, but you're keeping the play alive because guess what? That's what he does in a game. And that's one thing I'm going to point out what Norton said, but he's got to remember in a game, he can do this as well. So it's not like it's some station, statuesque quarterback back there who's extending the play or taking a long time. No, it's a guy who does extend plays, who is extending the play here. Yes, there's no pass rush, so I get it. But anyways, on the play, so he extends it to the right. Debo leaks out to the left, wide open, just throws it over to him. Of course, that draws some objection from Ken Norton Jr. Too much time. We need a clock. You can't take 9 seconds. And I could see Daniel saying something back to him. I don't know what he said, but the play counted, and there you go. So today was also a chance to get the backup quarterbacks, Josh Johnson and Sam Hartman, some time in reps. We have not seen a lot of them this week, so they got some time to work with in the 7-on-7 and some 11-on-11 stuff. Did have there was one pass to Moore in the corner of the end zone that undrafted corner Carlin Vigors was there, good positioning, picked it off. I think again, I keep saying he's an interesting guy to watch, and the way he's going to have to make it is special teams. And it's funny because and I'm going to veer off quite in a minute or for a minute because special teams is also a very big thing when you're watching this stuff go. And I enjoy watching Bill Krosky Merritt. I watched him going against Strachan in one special teams drill, and just the way like they're working on them. Just Larry Izzo, the special teams coach, working with them on coming off the line and engaging in a block, and then how you have to move your feet, and they wanting the punt protector to how he has to move his feet, and then you release, right? And you got to work downfield. And so it's things like that this is how those guys are going to make the roster. Like it's Krosky Merritt, like he can look good in the spring all he wants, but you make the team as running back in August. And there is some competition there because Chris Rodriguez slimmed down a little bit. There were times when he played last year where he did pretty well. So you have Jeremy McNichol. So that's four right. And then of course, Eckler and Robinson. So I think Merritt makes the team, but you've got to find other ways to prove your worth. Special teams is it. And that's where a guy like, it's like I said, it's where Krosky Merritt can do it. It's where Vigors will have to make his mark, is that because they like the possibility of him at corner developing, but you got to make your mark on special teams. Anyways, then I'm watching like Nick Bellore working with Ale Cajo, who's an undrafted rookie linebacker, also from UCLA, and just on again the same stuff. And I think it's interesting to watch Bellore because this is a guy this is why he's in the league for so long, is really, really good at what he does. And working with a young guy like Cajo, because I say that because the previous day I'm watching Cajo after practice. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday, working with a coach just on exactly what they were working on, just coming up the field and your footwork, where you got to put your hands, etc., that kind of stuff. And then you see him doing it in practice on Thursday. Again, that's how those guys can make their mark. Because if you don't make your mark, if you don't make a mark on special teams, you're not going to make it if you're in one of those undrafted roles, because that's why Tyler Owens made it last year. It's why he's getting more looks this year, because he made it first and foremost over there. And then you start to say, okay, what can he do from scrimmage? But if you don't do it there, that's you're not going to make it. So that's why they put a lot of emphasis on that. It's why I like to watch it, to see what guys are doing. So anyways, and I did think it's funny, by the way, because one of the last drills in that, where again you have a guy lined up who's like lined up at the end of the line if you're going to rush the punter, and the last one, Larry Izzo, went against Nick Bellore, and they kind of end up, of course, getting tangled up and almost like wrestling to the ground or whatever. So it's kind of fun, nice lighthearted moment. Anyways, so going back now to the last play, Josh Johnson threw the last pass of the practice, a touchdown pass to Ben Sinnott. So, and then after practice, we had a chance to talk to Laramie Tunsil for the first time since we talked to him after his signing, and he obviously was here all week. He did do everything today, not a heavy day of practice, of course, but the couple things stood out when we talked to him. One, I asked him about the offensive line, what he thought. He's like, hey, he really likes the line. And then Tunsil also was asked about the atmosphere in general, and what the coaches, his first impression of the coaches. And obviously you're going to say something positive, right? But what is it that they say? And I think the one thing that always jumps out here with the coaches is the energy, because and I talked about this last year at this time about how much energy they had. There are so many former players, and I think that contributes to it. I think the count was like 14 or 15. In fact, one of the former players, two former players, Ken Norton Jr. and Wes Welker, talked to the players. I forgot that Wes Welker is part of the organization now, but they talked to the players before practice about just how you handle these next 40 days before you come back to training camp, what things you need to do and how you need to do it, those kind of things. That's great advice to have those two guys do that. Anyways, so there's energy here. You get it from guys like Welker, who isn't even on the coaching staff, but is a part of the organization and can talk to these guys. You get it from the coaches and the staff. It's just really high energy. That's what Tunsil picked up on. Here's what he said about that.
They always have high energy. I'm like, where y'all get this energy from? Is it coffee, whatever y'all have? Just please let me know where y'all get this energy from. It's always high energy. It's always positive, optimistic. It's never negative. They always trying to coach. They always trying to I think it's personal before it's business. You know what I mean? That's huge.
All right, folks. Well, that's it from day 3 of minicamp. Hope you enjoyed these daily reports. I'll be doing this, of course, as you remember, every day during training camp when they have a practice. I'll be doing these over and over and over again. And I look forward to doing that, because it's now we get closer and closer to the stuff that really matters. We can end the speculation and look forward to what is really happening. So there you go, folks. I will be back on Monday. Again, my 1000th episode. Who knew? And then next week, I think on Tuesday, one of those days, I'll be doing 5 things. I think I do have Greg Cosell coming on that. I think that'll be Monday. Anyways, there you go. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.